Yeah. Do you ever give any time to thinking if you've taken a different road in life? Like, it's an amazing thing that you've been able to do in the life that you've had. Would you ever think, what if, and what would it have looked like?
I think about it all the time. You know, one of my favorite movies when I was coming up was that movie. You know, the movie with Jimmy Stewart. Is like, is it
It's
a?
a Wonderful Life.
It's a Wonderful Life. And I would think, you know, I had a little brother that got killed early in my life when I was about 10 years old. Um, and I often think because he was more musically inclined than I was, we were all in a traffic accident together, and he died in it. And I often think like, what would have happened? Because that day I wanted to die myself because I was holding his hand, and I didn't get killed, but he got yanked out of my hand, and he did. And I just felt like I had failed him. So I wanted to die
Mm.
myself. And I actually went and laid out in the road to get ran over so that I could die too. And this is real talk, man. And so that didn't happen. The guy that actually swerved and missed me was the guy who went called. He got me up and went to these people. This is back in 1973. There were no cell phones. You had to go to somebody's house and have them call the police. And that's what he did. You know, I was not to die that day, or any day for that matter, as I'm still here. But uh, I often think, what would have happened had I not did this or not did that? What would the situation be? You know, my brother was a better musician than me. I was more into sports like basketball and stuff, and I didn't get into music until after. You know, he was kind of like into it. So I often think like, what would he have been the one to do this? And I thought I would be an artist, and I thought that would be the case. So yeah, I think about it, man. Like, what would I have done had I not done this? Where would I be? You know, and I think about it sometimes. I do know this. This is the only thing that I've ever loved, and that I've only done since I've been a professional. Is I've made my career, my life doing music in some form or another. You know, when I first was
Is
starting out,
that
I did. Go
is
ahead.
that your way of maybe carrying him with you because music was his passion?
It is. I think about it a lot, and I think that is one of the things that I always think about is that, you know, I always think like God put this, because it was too many things, man. It just was too many things that fell into the right places. That's all it could be, to me. It's like it can only be God directing my path in that way, because it just was too many things. It's like when I watch one of these movies, like I just went to go see John Wick, and it was crazy. And it just like when certain things happen, you go like, how did that guy just know to be up there with a rifle? And come on, man. But then when I think about it, it's the same thing happened to me. Like, certain things happened at the exact right time that made it possible for me to go to the next step. That just like you go like, dude, there's no way that somebody was just waiting in the bushes to shoot the guy right before he stabbed him in the neck. Like, it's just like that kind of stuff. It's just not as serious as that, but just things that happen along the way that just says, you got a fork in the road, you're going to go left or you're going to go right on this fork. You know what I'm saying? And that's the thing that
Yeah.
made it like, made me think about, I'm supposed to be here. Too many times I've been on either flights, I've been robbed at gunpoint twice, and yet I walked away with my life on all of these things. That means I have a mission. I'm on a mission. I have something that I'm here for, a reason to be here. And
Hmm.
I always think about that, man, whenever something like that, and it gave me peace. And in the times that I knew I was going to die, I didn't have that fear that you have when you're going to die, man. I just was able to just understand, like, if this is, I've eluded death so many times that if this is my time, I'm okay with it. I'm ready to go. If that's what it is, you know, if that's what it is, I always wondered how I would react in the face of death. And I wasn't disappointed enough, man. I've been disappointed with myself for a lot of stuff, but that
No.
wasn't one of them, because I was at peace with it. Because once I resolved to the fact that, hey, I'm gonna see my little brother, I'm gonna see my grandma, whatever it is, I'm good, man. And
Yeah.
so it's just one of those
Yeah.
things. But it's a good question. I never really get a question like that, but it's a
Yeah.
great question, and I think it just helps me understand my destiny. You know.
And that was an
Well,
amazing
thank you for
answer.
being so open.
Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that Brian and I have realized when we speak to people, everything is made up about Prince because obviously he's this mega star, right? And he's
Sure.
the captain of the ship. But it's no accident the people who have come through the bands and the people he surrounded himself with. I think that there are bigger things at play that brought so many special people into his orbit. And I think there's
Sure.
an argument to be made that he was brought into some very special people's orbit. And I think that's the thing that we take
Absolutely.
from a lot of these interviews is that, there's a lot of incredible people. You're one of them. I mean, it goes without saying. I think every fan holds you with a dear place in their heart. But I just wanted you to know that was fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing
I
that.
I I I appreciate that, man, because one of the funny things that Prince did. Well, I don't know if it's funny, but one of the weird things that he did at the end, like it just had to be like, I was only there till like 2012, and around 2011 somewhere, he came over to my house and just showed up, man. He just came and knocked on my door, and I opened it up, and it's Prince, in Bria. And I'm like, hey man, what's up? Like, how and he's like, so you want to come in? And I was making some food. Prince don't eat meat, and so he says, no, I'll stay out here. And I just went out on my porch, and he was wearing this long tunic kind of thing, looked like, Jarrell from, Krypton, with this long thing on, like Prince. I'm like, what's happening? And just came over, man. This dude got on his knee and kissed my hand, and like I'm like, what the hell is going on? And told me like, hey man, I wanted to apologize to you. Like I was really hard on you, and I really was tough. And he said, but I just wanted you to be great, and you are great. And I was like, wow. Um, and he told me all this. He said, you introduced me to a lot of people that I love. He named off a bunch of names, Karen Sharma and Tamar, and just named off all the people that I had introduced him to, Bria, and all of the people that I had introduced him to. And he said, he mentioned the fact that I talked to him about religion and that I told him about Muslim, the whole thing, brought him into this whole understanding about at least what I had understood about the Muslim faith and Christian faith and all of these different things that we would talk about, that he would, ultimately examine until he got to when he met Larry and got into the Jehovah Witness thing. But he thanked me for all of that, man, because I grew up in the church, so, and I grew up around all of that type of thing. And so he just wanted to let me know he appreciated all of the input and all of the stuff because Prince was a much bigger teacher to me than I think I was to him. But yet and still, he appreciated what I brought to the table, and he wanted me to know that, man. And it was kind of weird because I felt like, well, first thing I felt like is that I was looking around, and he was like, "What are you looking around?" I said, "Because I'm waiting for Ashton Kutcher to come up and say I'm punked." I'm like, I'm waiting for this dude to jump out of something. Because it was the weirdest thing to have Prince on my porch where everybody in my neighborhood could kind of see him, and like looking out the window, like, hey, oh, what the hell is this Prince over there proposing to Morris on his knees? And I was just like, this is weird, man. And I remember getting off the phone. I was married at the time, and I remember calling my wife. I went in her office. Her office was like the first door, and I went in there and used her and called her and said, "You are not gonna believe what just happened." She's like, "What?" I said, "Man, Prince just came over here, and just like it was weird, almost like he was getting ready, like he was saying goodbye or something, because it was just like he told me all of this stuff and how much he loved me and how much he loved the people that I introduced him to. All of this stuff, it was weird, like almost like he was saying, "All right, bro, see you in the next one," or something like that, because I just thought it was the weirdest thing ever that he didn't even tell me he was coming over. He used to live across the street from me and would stop from time to time. But I'm just glad that Brill was there, because I wouldn't have believed it myself if I had a witness to what had happened that day. I,
Yeah.
I would have been like, I don't even believe it. But she was there and saw the whole thing happen, and she just kind of stood there, kind of like she had a long little dress on and the white dress and looking very nice, and he did his thing, and she was there to witness the whole thing. And I'm just like, wow, this is weird, man. Like, it's crazy. I remember like kind of shedding a tear because I was so outdone by the whole thing. I just didn't know what to. And I told my wife, I said, "Man, this was crazy. Like I'm like I'm flabbergasted. Like it's like, wow, you know." But thank God it wasn't the end at that time. And but it was just a very strange thing. And I just like remember thinking like, wow, man, for him to come and tell me all of that stuff and apologize for how tough he was. But he was tough on everybody, you know. But
Yeah,
for him to say that, I just was like, wow, man, this is crazy, man. Like, because I didn't think about it, man. I always knew. I heard from everybody that I talked to about Prince before I even met him that he's a tough guy. He's a hard guy in rehearsal. He's a hard guy with this, that. So that wasn't a shock to me. That's
mm,
something I was used to even before I got with him. So I didn't expect
yeah,
it to be any different for me. You know,
yeah.
I just thought that's what it is. And
Well,
so yeah,
we
Mm,
we've learned in our experiences with some of our interviews, talking to some of the people from Prince's past too, like it's no secret, he was very demanding with what he wanted out
yeah,
of you if you worked for him, right? And I think I always think of this humility, and I have it just quadrupled my respect for you guys because, like, you know, sometimes as musicians we put ourselves first with our ego, but I can be honest and say, you know what, Prince would have, chewed me up and spit me out in 3 minutes. So for you guys and I mean that with all due respect to him, he's amazing.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
to be able to that quote when you said I knew my place in the room, it told me a lot about your personality, your ability to deal with different personalities, your work ethic, your professionalism, because I think a lot of musicians would not have been able to work with him for whatever reason. So the people that could hang in there for a while, that says a lot to me about them.
yeah, yeah. Well, like I said, man, I realized that I had really, and I don't use the word luck. I don't like luck. You know, and for anybody like I said, that's just not a term we use. We practice. But I'm one of the most fortunate cats, and I realized that I was. I knew that there were greater players than me. I actually offered, one of my favorite keyboard players of all time is Greg Games, man. And Greg called me after we did a show in LA and was like, Morris, he says, man, I played with everybody in the game. He says, the only cat I haven't worked with is Prince, man. I want to play with y'all. And I was like, sacre bleu. I'm like, oh my God, yes. I'm like, and I called Prince, like, Prince, like I'm breathing hard. Prince, Greg Games wouldn't be in the band. And Prince like, so like I'm not, but it's Greg Games. Greg Philagagis is him. And he's like, I got you. And I'm like, yeah, but I ain't Greg Games. Like, he's like, man, he said, Greg is dope, but they're all hired guns. It's like they just, they go gig to get wherever the money is and all this kind of stuff. He says, like, yeah, Greg's a dope guy, but I got you. And I'm like, yeah, but I ain't Greg Games, bro. I mean, that's Greg.
Mhm.
And he's just like, I like my own crew, man. I like people that's going to just like, it ain't about what gigs we doing. Like we hang when we ain't working,
Yeah,
and we here, everybody's in Minneapolis, man. This is like family. So it's like we do music and we do, life.
yeah.
And so that was the way he was like that, man. And it was just like, wow. And that was like crazy to me because I'm like, dude, that's one of the greatest dudes in the history of the game. And he was like, yeah, but I got you. And I'm like, but who
Oh,
wants that? I mean, like you got great.
but
So
that's one heck of a compliment.
just once again,
mm,
Yeah.
it's a heck of a compliment, man. And that's what I'm saying. That's why I love this brother forever, man. Because like I said, I could have easily been replaced. Chucky Booker, like some of the cats that I could call them, and I offered up these guys when I left the first time and said, well, Prince, if you want Chucky, which I know Chucky and blah blah blah. And he's like, oh no, man, you're my guy, and I'm like, wow, like
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Well,
So
I find it crazy that to hear you say this. Though. I mean, I've heard Eric Leeds say the same thing about like David Sanborn. Why didn't he pick him? And then when Maceo joined the band, he's like, "Well, there you go. That's the guy you should have had all along." But the reality is that I don't think it would have worked necessarily having these guys.
no,
You know,
no,
as much as they
no.
are
I'm gonna
great
tell you something.
musicians,
Eric
I think
Leeds.
he was right.
So Eric was, it's the thing is though, man, Prince has always been crew oriented. He wanted his own crew, his own people, and Eric was, him and Atlanta were just crazy. Like I did a thing with George Clinton once at the Glam Slam, and I sat there while we were rehearsing on the stage for the thing while Eric in Atlanta set up and rearranged all of those horn parts for every song with the two of them, revoiced everything, and it was unbelievable what they were able to do. Eric had a thing that was his own thing that was just like, yeah, there's Maceo, yeah, there's some of these other cats, but this is one of the coolest dudes that he had a great look, he had a great vibe, and he could kill, absolutely kill. The only thing that would happen with Eric sometimes is him and Prince were just like, they were like this. They both kind of halfway hated each other, but they were both so good they had to deal with each other. Because every time Eric got a chance to kind of stab him, he would, and every time Prince kind of get his, he would. But he knew that they were both at the top of their games. You know what I'm saying? And he had respect for Eric because he was that cat. You know what I'm saying? And so did I. I love whenever I got a chance to play with Eric because he's a beast of a horn player. He's got his own tone. He's got his vibe and like that. And he's a sarcastic fuck, but he's a dope cat, man. He's just a dope dude, and you can't say nothing.
Are there any other band members that are proper beasts that you think are undervalued by the fan community?
Oh man,
I think Levi
Prince
is like super talented. Yeah.
Prince told me about Levi. He told me one time about Levi when I first got in the band. What he said about Levi, he said I like Levi because he's like the other side of my brain. He says he says whatever lick I'm thinking to do, whenever he would break down where it's him and Levi, they automatically knew where to go on each other. And he says that's what I like about Levi. He says he's just the other half of my brain. He just plays exactly what I think ought to be there. And then he told me about Sonny. He said Sonny, what I love about Sonny. And Sonny used to beat Prince up in school. Prince told me a story about how him and this guy named Daryl Boudreaux used to basically take turns beating him up. And it's almost like, you beat him last week, right? So I got him this week. But I said, so, and he's in your band? But the bottom line, he said, the thing about Sonny, he said, Sonny is a computer. He said, we put in and he spits it out. It's just like he's a computer. And he's just like, and he told me at the end, man, Prince got this powder blue Stratocaster. And he was showing it to me. And he told me, he says, man, I always wanted a Strat like this. He said, because he said Sonny had one when we were growing up. And he said, I always wanted that guitar. It was one of the most beautiful guitars. He said, it's like this powder blue with this white pick guard. He said, I just love that Strat. And he said, when I got this one, he said, I named it Sonny. And Sonny wasn't playing with him at the time. And I called Sonny and I said, Sonny, man, I said, Prince just got this blue Strat, man, this powder blue Strat. And then he named it Sonny. And I was like, what? I said, yeah, man, he named his guitar after you, man. Prince played that guitar to the end, man. But he told me, he said, I always wanted one. And he said, I finally got this one, like just like Sonny used to have. And he said, I said, man, I said, Sonny, that's a hell of an honor, bro. This dude named one of his guitars after you. And that guitar probably now is worth $1 trillion. It's just like, and just to have that happen, despite the fact that he used to have that tumultuous relationship with Sonny. He said Sonny taught him a lot of stuff. I remember when Prince said in an interview, they would ask him, like, who's your hero? Like, would it be Jimmy or whoever? And he said, Sonny. And they're like, who is Sonny? They're like, he said, Sonny. That's where I learned from. Yeah. Prince told me he used to look in his window in the basement and watch Sonny. Him and Andre would watch Sonny through the basement window. And then Sonny would like, come on in here, kind of thing. And that's just incredible to me, man. It's just like the history of the Minneapolis Sound and all of those guys and how all of that with Flight Time and with Morris Day and all of this stuff worked out. As an outsider coming in, it was amazing to hear these stories like folklore and how just like all of these, it's just like the beginning of The Hobbit or something, man. It's crazy.
So, Morris, we really appreciate your time. It's an amazing conversation. I'll just squeeze in a few Patreon questions.
Sure.
Yeah, one from a man named Biggs, not Biggs, Briggs. So I don't mean me. A
Okay.
man named Briggs, Tony. He wanted to know what the first concert you ever went to was.
My first concert was James Brown.
James Brown, and he.
My mom, James Brown. Yeah, it was my brother's 17th birthday, and she took me and my brother to see James Brown in Little Rock,
Oh,
Arkansas.
awesome.
What lineup?
It
Is
was
that
Maceo
Boosie
and
era?
Fred, and there was
Okay.
Maceo and Fred and those guys. And I think Melvin was playing on drums at the time. And I think Maceo told me that's when I think when he met his wife, she was one of the dancers. And
Wow.
because I told Maceo about it when I started playing with Maceo, I told him, I said, man, my first concert, man, was James. Y'all came to Little Rock, man. And I told him about this one particular part in the show where James Brown, they had turned on these strobe lights, and James was doing this thing in these strobe lights. It was like the wildest thing I'd never saw strobe lights used at a well, I've never been to a concert. So they used it, and James just looked like he was just moving like a robot. It was just the craziest thing. And I just remember telling Maceo, like, yeah, Mace, then y'all turned on the strobe light. And then James Brown, he did a jump in the air with a split. And it just looked like it was slow. I went by, I saved up enough money to buy my own strobe light, man. When I was a kid, I saved up enough money and bought a strobe light and turned the lights off my room and then just mess with the strobe light, man. Like I had this thing and it just did like this whole thing, man. It was a very influential concert for me to see James Brown. That was my first concert.
One for Tracy Norman. She wanted to know what your favorite Prince song and album are.
Well, there's two songs that I get that question a lot, and two of my favorite songs to play, and they both kind of came off the same album, which is a shock because Prince has many, many great records, man. It's hard to pick, but I do so love, for whatever reason, I love "Question to You." It's a song he does. It's only one verse, and then it's just this incredible guitar solo, and this background claps and choral thing that he does, and it's like one of my favorite tunes. And the other songs on that same album. And Prince, of course, has "Sign of the Times," which everything on that record slaps. Like everything on that record is crazy, and so many other. 1999 was crazy, but Joy and Repetition and Question to You are like two of my favorite songs to play because it's like I can visually I can close my eyes and I can see just him telling this story about this and Joy and Repetition. I can see it just like Dorothy Parker's one of my favorite songs, and I can see this story that as he lays it out, and I asked Prince one time about what he thought he was the best at, and he told me he says he says, um, Morris, at the end of the day, I'm a poet. I'm a songwriter. He
Hmm.
says, I hate bad lyrics. And he says, I think I'm a bit better as a lyricist. And I said, you know what, Prince? I'm 100 with that, man. I completely agree that lyrics is the best thing that you do because I go through some eras where I didn't like the keyboard sounds. I'm a keyboard buff. So I didn't like when he just used one keyboard to do every part on the record. It just like to me. But it's like if I take away the music on any of his songs, I don't care whether I like the music or not. If because some stuff I like, I love some stuff not so much. But if I take away the music, all of it's great because he always got something to say lyrically. That's every song has a different thing that it does in a piece. He told me Morris, every song should have at least one special thing. It should have something in it that's special, and that was his lyrics. And he could take anything I could peel away if I read because we used to get lyric sheets. For me, it was important because I needed to know when I'm playing vocal samples and I'm doing stuff. I had to get the lyrics in my head, and I would read all of these lyrics because on some of the old stuff, I'm like, I don't know what this means. Like, what does Purple Rain mean? Like, they have to really get deep into like what does that mean? And so sometimes, in order for me to kind of get it, I need to look at the lyrics and just like read it as a piece of poetry. And that's what you could do with Prince's music. You could just read it and understand that this is a cat that's thinking about. I don't like bad lyrics, Morris. I don't like bad lyrics. This bothers me. And so he spends the time to make sure that that's right. And I think that's one of the things that pops for me.
Ask the question, how much of how much is in the vault? And the question that I like to ask to people who are around him is, how much of his talent have we heard? Because there might be 1,000 other
It's
songs in the vault, but
it's
it might be the same
it's
vocabulary.
still this is the thing. There's been a lot of bootlegs. There's been a lot of stuff, and a lot of people think there's not much left. There's a lot of stuff in the vault. I used to go in there and just look around. Back when I used to go in the vault, then toward the end, it got to where he just went in the vault. But back when I would go in there with the engineers and just look at stuff, I'd just be like, "What is all of this?" He had filled the vault up back in the '90s. There wasn't any room. There was stuff on the floor, stuff all over the place. And then it got into the pre-vault, which wasn't like airtight and managed like the vault was. The vault was like hermetically sealed, and so you don't have this oxidation that happens with a lot of these tapes. But man, it got beyond that and just started stacking up all out in the pre-vault where a lot of his awards and plaques and stuff like that. He didn't have room for all that stuff. So he just had a room that just put all these gold records and platinum records, all of this stuff over here in the corner, put the tapes in the corner, and just like stuff was everywhere, man. There's a ton of stuff in there. Not only that, Prince recorded like rehearsals, shows, like all of this stuff, man. That all of them's different. He can put out stuff for the next decades, man. To me, that's what of the stuff that I managed to see, and I didn't see everything because I wasn't up in everything. But I mean, I saw what I saw, and it was a lot. So, man,
I've
they could
heard you
curate
talk
stuff out
about,
of there forever, man.
yeah, I've heard you talk about Crystal Ball, where he played that to you, and you were like, "Who's playing the drums? That's me. Who's playing the bass? That's me." Do you think there's
Yeah.
anything in the vault that you're aware of that would kind of show the level of talent far in excess of what we've already had?
I think so. I think there's stuff in there like that because he went and pulled that record out and just blew me away, man. Because I knew he was dope. I mean, I knew Prince was cold and everything, and could really, but I just had no idea uh, when he played that song because the long version is just changing like tempos and everything is just flowing like this, and it's just like I'm like, Prince, how do you do that? This song's like 10, 15, 10, 12 minutes long or something like this. I'm like, so you played all the way through with the drums and he just and all the way through with the bass, blah 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 blah. And he says everything is done in my head, Morris. He says I see it finished and it's all in my head. So all I'm doing really is executing. I'm just executing these parts that I have in my head. I know how it's supposed to go. So I can play the drums for 15 minutes and then I can play the bass for 15 minutes and I know that's all gonna fall in. I've watched him do it, man, and I'm like, man, this is and so a lot of people throw the genius word around pretty loosely. I'm telling you, man, based on what I saw of this dude, he is a freaking genius. He is the Mozart of our. That's what I came to the conclusion. I used to talking to him about what's his favorite movies and stuff. He told me his favorite movie at the time. But one of the first time I asked him, it was Amadeus, and I had never seen Amadeus at that point. And I went back and looked at it, and I said, "Oh snap! This I totally get it. Why that's his favorite movie. That's him. That's the whole." I said, "That's him. I get it." It's that movie. Then when the Matrix came out, that was his. He got on the Matrix tip because now he's coming into the awareness of the society and the world. So that became his new thing was the Matrix. Because he really loved that the Wachowski brothers and how they were breaking down this movie. So I completely get it. But Amadeus, man, he said that's his favorite movie. And when I watched it, I was like, oh my God. And he told me his favorite scene was when he's like, this is what I think you mean when you and played the guy's song because he was as he was walking in, he's memorizing it. And so he's like, yeah,
Yeah,
I would like you to hear this. He said, yeah, I heard it already when I was walking in, and then
yeah,
just
that's
played
very.
it. Uh, I was like, oh my God, that's Prince. He said, this is what I think you mean. You know, And I said, yeah, I said, Prince, I went back to him after I saw it. And I said, bro, now I know why that's your favorite movie. I said, that's because that's you, just like that,
Yeah.
So our Patreon, No Names, he has a question for you. He really likes the song Chlorine Bacon Skin. He wanted to know your thoughts on it.
Personally, Prince played that song for me too, man. When we were working on the Crystal Ball record, and he played it for me, and he would do this personality. I used to come like he's tricky, or he had these different personalities that he would the personas that he put on. And one of the funniest parts about it, he would play me the part where at the beginning of the song where he starts to play the drums and then he like drops the stick or he does something and it stops and then the groove comes back in. He played that like 5 times, man, and we just crack up laughing. And then he's just talking, yeah, don't you like me? And all of the stuff that he's doing in it, and it was hilarious, just and he really loved that, man. Like I remember we were working on Exodus. We left. We had been working on stuff, man, and we left and came back. Prince had did about 5 or 6 of these segues, man, where he's doing all these voices, and we like, what the hell? Like, what is all of this? Hey, yeah, the mashed potato girl and all of this, and
Yeah.
it was just like he just loved doing these little voices, and this Italian guy, he's doing this, and he had me do it. I'm Montalvo, and I'm doing all of this stuff. And it was like comedy, man. It was just funny for us, man. And it's just like we love that because we get to laugh at ourselves and have fun like kids, man. We used to, man, Prince, we used to run up and down the hall like we was kids, man, at Paisley Park and be at the movie theater. He rented the theater out. I remember we rented the theater out and we were watching uh what is the scary movie. And Carmen was in this movie.
Okay.
And he didn't, I don't think he knew that the scene where he's tied up in the chair was in the movie. And, because when it got to that part, me and Kirk were there with him. And I think my team may have been there at the time, I think. And man, when it got to the part where he was sitting out there in that chair, dude, we took off running down the aisles of the movie theater, man. Like just running and hollering and screaming because we were dying laughing. And he was so shocked. Excuse me. So shocked. He just had that look on his face like, we're like, that's you, it's you. And it was just, man, we just like kids, man. And it's just like that kind of stuff, man, I'm telling you, is the stuff that I really, really, truly miss. Because it's just like, man, we just like a bunch of kids, man, and just goofing off and watching television and seeing things, like all of the stuff we would do, and it was hard work. It was tough days, but it was a lot of happy days, man, and a lot of cool moments like that, man.
If you
One
do
last,
write that book of the anecdotes,
Yeah,
can you intersperse
yeah,
those types of stories where it's not about the
yeah,
celebrity, it's these little sort of
yeah.
personal moments?
Yeah. That's what the book. What the thing with my book, the ticket is about. It's just about a kid from the middle of nowhere who had a dream. I went to see a show. I still have that ticket in my pocket in my wallet to where I went to see that show and said that day that that's my destiny and that's what I intend to do and that's what I did. By the grace of God, I went and I did that. And what it's about really, and Prince is involved at the level of he was the catalyst for the dream, and I just want it to be about you can make it if you try. We used to talk about song titles. And Prince was all into that because we love Sly and the Family Stone. He said, look at the song titles we have today, and look at what we used to listen to when we were coming up, Morris. He said, you can make it if you try. Everybody's a star. Stan. He just would name off these songs by all the different artists like James and I'm Black and I'm Proud. And he would name off these titles, man, and just kind of what we, WAP, what we got now. And not to knock on nobody, man. Art is art, and Prince was all about Prince was a racy artist himself. He got, Tipper Gore going after him about getting them banned out the stores. So he knew about racy. And so we see, and he don't seek to encroach on anybody's art, but we just saying we want to come from a place of positivity and talk about things that uplift people. And when he talked about Sly Stone and Larry Graham and a lot of the people that we listened to back in the day, because we talk about how when we heard that there was an album coming out, we'd be waiting at the record store to open up just so we could get those records, man, because we knew that there was going to be something special when Stevie came out with something, or James came out with something, or Sly came out with something, or Graham, Shaka. Those were all our heroes and all the people that we loved and that we respected, and that we wanted to hear that music, and so that was just a thing for us, man. And I appreciated that too, because I thought about it too, like Stan and all of those song titles, man, and what they were talking about. So that's what we wanted to emulate, and that's the stuff we like. And we like George Clinton because George was like, Prince always talked about how the difference between Clark Kent and Superman. He said, look at Superman. He don't wear his Clark Kent clothes when he go do work. He look like something different. He look like something elevated because he don't look like everybody else. And he's got powers above and beyond. And he looks like that. This dude got a red cape on. He's flying around in some underpants and some boots. That's how Prince wanted to always approach music, from a standpoint of like, he said Morris, because I'm a simple guy, man. I drove my little 4-wheel drive and do my thing. And Prince is like, he said, you're a rock star, bro. And I'm like, me, a rock star, man? For real? I'm like, I'm not a rock star. You're a rock star, but I'm not a rock star. He's like, yeah, you are. You're a rock star. And he says, so I want you to think like a rock star. I want you to act like a rock star. I want you to look like a rock star. I don't wear blue jeans around all the time. But I'm like, I got to go to Target, Prince, sometimes. I can't wear what you wear to Target. You know what I'm saying? But he was right in a lot of regards. I don't mind. Prince put on the Superman suit and never put the Clark Kent suit back on. He just stays Superman. I have to be Clark sometimes, and I have to go back and forth because I like my anonymity. I like being to go places and don't nobody know who I am. And that's cool for me. Sometimes I can get on the stage and I'm cool, and then I go home and nobody know. I'm okay with that. That's been my thing. But I do understand what he meant. I do understand that is the life of a person like him. Michael Jackson couldn't walk out in the public. He had to dress up in all these funny costumes and outfits. But I always came to know that when I decided I wanted to do this type of work, that was the pirate's life for me. And I was going to have to deal with what comes with being in that type of scenario. And be at a restaurant sometimes, somebody come up to me, man. This is so weird, man. I was just in Seattle like a week and a half ago, and I got like a shoulder issue that's like frozen shoulder kind of thing. And so my executive producer Zoe had this stuff that I had hurt my shoulder. I'm like, oh my God. She said, Morris, I got this stuff on my knee. She put this stuff on me and it just instantly stopped what was hurting. And I said, where did you get, oh my God, what is this? And she said, it's some kind of like CBD, something. So I said, Zoe, I don't know what this is. I got to have it. Where in the world did you get it? We go over to this place, man. And there's some kind of, like a place where I've never been to a dispensary before, like in a dispensary. So you have to have they have like a security person. You have to have ID, and you go through this whole business. I go in there, man, and get some shoulder medication. 2 seconds later, the security guard that's like checking me and checking our ID to let us in and everything. He comes up behind me like, "Are you D. Morris Hayes, to play with President George Clinton?" Yeah, like I knew it, man. I knew it, bro. Like I got a band, and I was like, dude, this is so wacky to me because I don't even be thinking like that, man. I'm just in here getting some arm sad, man. And this dude is freaking out, man, because he's like, I knew it was you. And Zoe's like, what the? Like, can I take you anywhere, bro? Like, I'm like, that don't happen to me all the time. And I just kind of forget sometimes about that aspect of my life. And I'm just a customer getting something for my shoulder. And he freaked out, man. And it's just like sometimes you just have to go like, God, dog, I guess Prince was right. Like, I'm in Seattle. Man, it's like I'm disconnected, man. And he's like, "Can I take a picture?" I said, "Yeah, sure." In front of the sign, I'm like, "No, I don't endorse the pot placement. Sorry, bro." But it just was one of those reminders of what he always told me. He said, "Man, you can go anywhere, and this is your life. This is what happened to you." We used to go to clubs and just watch the crowd. He called it vortex energy. He said, "Just watch. You're gonna sit here, Morris, and just wait for a few minutes and watch what happens to the club." And sure enough, people would be spread out when we first get in. In a few minutes, the crowd just slowly trickle in. And so now there's this entire crowd of people that are looking at us like fish in a tank. And it would happen everywhere we go. And he said, "That's just vortex energy, Morris. That's just what it is. You're a rock star." I said, "Man, Prince, it ain't me. It's you, dude. Ain't nobody checking for me. They all checking for you." But he's just trying to convince me this is the life we live. And this is what it is. This is rock and roll. Thank you. Good night. So
When
that
you're
was
in
just it.
when you're in Ace Hardware in Chanhassen, the vortex happen around the
Vortex
lock
energy.
section.
But nobody was bothering me. It didn't get to be a situation until he came in with his furry boots and turtleneck. That's when it got out of hand. So that's why I'm saying. That's why my argument to him, like, see, I can go anywhere and it's fine. It's just when you come in, we get the drama. So that's all that was, man. But it's still great, man. I wouldn't change it for anything, man. It was an incredible time in my own life. It changed the trajectory of my life. Prince took care of me, and I took care of my family, and I'm forever grateful for that.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have to do it, man. Bro, I'm the worst keyboard player this dude ever had. But I can tell you this, he kept me around a long time. I don't know exactly why, but he did. And I'm just grateful for that. Whatever the reason he had was, like, you're a puppy in the woods. I got to look after you more. You'll get chewed up if I don't. I don't care what it was. I'm just grateful that he did. I'm honored and grateful.
I have two last questions for you on my end,
Sure.
Morris. We have a mutual friend, Sam, and she wanted me to ask you, why did you always get picked to play drunk characters?
That is
Montalvo
something
was drunk.
because I never been drunk. I don't even drink. So that's the funny part about it. I just always thought Richard Pryor was the greatest, the comic drunk. Well, not the greatest, because what's the one guy he only did like the drunk character all of the time. Gosh, what's his name? Uh, I used to love him because he would be the drunk in all his stuff, and he was just phenomenal from back in the day, back in the '60s, and he used to be on Johnny Carson a lot. But I always thought that was funny. And Richard Pryor he played a great drunk, and I used to sneak and listen to my brother's Richard Pryor when my mom and dad would leave, and my brother was at school, whatever. I listened to his Richard Pryor records, and whenever Richard Pryor would play the drunk dude, like, whenever he'd be the preacher or drunk, man, that's what made me love comedy, and that's what made Prince love comedy so much. And I would just listen and listen to these Richard Pryor records, and him drunk, and then I just would incorporate that into my thing, like, and it's just because they just get into this thing, and they're like, they mispronounce where Mr. Piss Officer, I didn't tell you this way, and everything. It was great. And I just used to love it, man. It's because it was just funny to me, because I used to see a lot of drunk cats in the neighborhood, back in the day when there was a lot of us in town here. And cats would they get their little Friday night jam on. I used to own a pool hall, me and my brother. When we were kids out of our old house, that was the way we made our allowance. And I used to make a bunch of money, man. I made like $600 a week. Back then, that was a gang of money, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Kids in school, I was in like junior high making, on an average of two to $600. It was that much, 600 when we first started. Of course, as things tapered off, then the money would go down. But it was the only place in town that people come shoot pool, play pinball, and play the Seabird, man. That's what we call the juke. And and when we got that first take, and we made all that money, we were like, we're rich. we're rich, with just that much money on the first week. Whenever they would come and take the money out of the pool table and all those stuff, they get their split, and you get your split. And it was like me and my brother, our split was $600. I was like, oh my God, my dad, I don't even know if make that much money. So it was crazy, man. And so,
Yeah.
and that's another thing. We just, and I just used to love that, man. It was just funny. But yeah, man, that's why I guess I get the drunk rolls because I can play them pretty good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
There you go, Sam.
This has been fantastic.
Sam. I did it.
I think we've got enough questions for another round at some point down the line. What's next for you? Because I've had the privilege of seeing you. I kind of lost count, maybe 5 times with the MPG since Prince passed. I had the real privilege of sitting in on soundcheck in New York, and that was phenomenal to see that the work ethic that was instilled in you guys, and I think is naturally in you, is completely, absolutely still there. It was as if I was watching Prince rehearse that band.
What?
You put some songs on SoundCloud. What are you working on outside of the MPG stuff?
Well, I got this really dope song out right now with this girl, Lisa Dietrich. That's awesome, man. It's called Sugar, and it's on all of the platforms now. But it's got like 100, and last time I checked, like 130,000 views after about 2 weeks. I think it's been out about a couple weeks now, and it's a kind of a big band song that we did like almost 10 years ago, like 2013, 2014. And she and I started working on. Bette Midler liked it, brought it into a rehearsal to learn. Um, but we decided to just redo it this time with like a kind of a big band sound. I kind of molded the stuff myself when we wrote it, and but this time we decided we got Harvey Mason, senior on it, like Chick Corea's bass player, like all of these people like that are on it. This guy Letty Garcia, Phil, our horn ranger for Prince, Phil is on there, um, uh, Phil Lassiter, and so we just did it, man. And it's phenomenal. It's one of my best pieces of work. And Lisa, she brought this tune to me, and I just built it up, and we really made something special with this song, man. And it's a piece that I'm very proud of. It sounds like Big Boy. I love Jam and Lewis. They're the two of my heroes and two of my mentors, and I always want to try to like do things on that level and like Prince and do things on that level. I feel like this is something that I can sit alongside of things that they do that's of quality, and I want to do work like that, and do quality work. And so it's just like I'm very fortunate, man. I got like an EDM thing I did with my guy David Alexander, who is a longtime friend of mine. And right now, I just had some Zoom calls today and yesterday. It looks like I'm going to Cambodia and I'm going to Pakistan to do. I have a thing called Global Groove for Peace that when I was living in China, I lived in Shanghai for almost a year, and I met a lot of people and I did some music, and I started like coming up as an artist myself. I never looked at myself like I could be my own artist. And living in China kind of like retooled my thinking about that. And I'm now working on my own records and to do my own show and things like this, and I'm working with the people in Cambodia. I'm working out to develop it all, but I'm writing music for like the princess of Cambodia. So it's like
Wow.
it's really awesome, man, because all of this stuff is just kind of like baking right now. I'm probably speaking, too soon on it, but I'm just putting it in that it's like it's done, and I'm looking at it in a positive way that it's going to come to completion and come to fruition. And so, but it's funny too because there's a lot of uh, you know things that kind of turn, that didn't go great, and there's been a lot of downtime with the MPG, there were some things, that we had to sort out with our naming situation. Like we had a license to use the name, and now, our time ran out for that, and now they're gonna do what they're gonna do with the NPG name and stuff like that. And so we just had to kind of pivot. We got a lot of music that we wrote in LA a year and a half ago, almost a couple of years ago now, and that we want to have come out. That we want that music to come out. That we did some good music that the NPG did. So it's a lot of things we got to kind of figure out and kind of do, man. But it's all good, because I think we got good stuff. And I'm just, just trying to keep a hustle, man, and just do what I've learned to do. Prince taught us all a lot of stuff. If we're not successful, it's not Prince's fault. It's our own fault for whatever we don't do. He gave us a name. People know Mr. Hayes because of my time with Prince. And I spent a lot of time around watching this man doing what. That doesn't mean I know everything. Obviously, I don't got hit records. So I don't obviously know what Prince, but I learned a lot. And so I want to take what I did learn, and and a lot of it was just like sometimes when you live in the shadows of somebody so great, especially somebody like me, you don't feel confident about your own stuff, and I got to come out and do something behind Prince. You like very cautious. Almost have a mentality of like I'd rather not put nothing out than to have something out that sucks, and then you just get lambasted for it. But I'm learning to just like, hey, you know what? Everything ain't for everybody, and just somebody I've heard some songs that like I would have say is like poo poo and like but somebody likes it and it speaks to somebody, and so I'm learning to just like trust the process, do what resonates with you, that from the heart reaches the heart. So that's what I'm trying to indoctrinate myself with now. Even at this point, and as much as I've done, I have my own insecurities, I have my own self-doubts and things like that that I have to work through. And so what I'm doing now, whenever I talk about these types of things, what I'm trying to do is help somebody else to like, you know what, put all your fear aside, put all your other stuff aside. We just have to just keep it moving and do the best we can and try to enjoy your life, man. Life is short. Just put your music out. And everybody ain't gonna like it. Everybody don't have to like it. If you like it, then put it out, man. We don't need a record deal anymore. We don't, we got instant distribution on the internet. Everybody's got instant distribution and everything. You just don't have an advance. You don't have a promotional team. You have yourself and you have your voice. So put your stuff out, man, and let it do what it do. If you got 10 people that like it, there's 10 more than you have.
Morris, this was an absolute incredible time.
It's been awesome.
Maybe down the road we could revisit this again, because I know both of us could keep asking you a lot of questions. So again, big thank you to the Solitary Adventure as always. And again, Mr. Hayes, thank you so much for your time. It's greatly appreciated. And remember, guys,
thank you, brother.
Practice hard, practice smart. On keyboard too, there, you keyboardists out there. No excuses. We'll see you soon.